something in me that believes that there's inherent value in the environment, and that's why I'm so drawn to it, I think.
Charity is what you pay to be here. And you know, we cannot, as human beings, continue to be singly focused.
This riparian areas doesn't seem like much to a lot of people, but it's a huge thing for the people that is involved, and I do believe that it's going to expand into more. It's very exciting.
You can go down here.
Okay.
So yeah, this one all the way you can see the space.
Holy moly. Gee whiz. Well, I'm Dave East, and I've been a rancher most of my life. When I first got in touch with SEAWA was, it had to be about 3 years ago. There was an advertisement come in the mail, and I seen the advertisement of SEAWA with weed control and habitat enhancement.
My name is Terence Lazarus. I'm the General Manager of the St. Mary River Irrigation District. A true riparian area is an area next to a water body. Oftentimes we refer to it in rivers, for instance. The riparian area is where you see the cottonwood forests and those kinds of things. Riparian areas are tremendously important for water bodies in all cases because they help preserve the integrity of the water quality. But many times with trees, for instance, they actually intercept a lot of the pollutants that might enter the river and actually use them themselves.
Yeah, riparian areas within our parks, and there are parks on riparian areas, I guess, so that's kind of where our interests cross over. My name is Keziah Lesko-Gosselin. I work for City of Medicine Hat Parks and Recreation, and my role is Parks Technician. Unfortunately, a lot of the benefits of riparian areas are pretty invisible because they're something that we are accustomed to. But riparian areas are really helpful when it comes to managing water quality and water quantity as well. And they provide wildlife and fish habitat. They provide areas for breeding grounds. They provide areas to get food, and they also provide recreational opportunities and educational opportunities for humans as well. They're kind of like a human body that's been injured. They have a magnificent capacity to kind of regulate themselves. However, it's repetitive degradation, like an agricultural or an industrial effect. And that is what's, like the repetitive damage is what's causing harm to these areas, because if you trample on the same plant every day, it's never going to be able to come back.
Because it was pretty devastated. There was nothing there. There was sand that was washed up on the banks. That was all like a slump area, sloped and slouched and washed away. The weeds are those obnoxious weeds. They're toxic, and when a leafy spurge puts out a toxin, and around the weed itself, it doesn't let the grass grow.
Initially, SEAWA came to this area because the landowner at the time had a leafy spurge problem, and that's an invasive, prohibited weed. So we came out here and basically made an experiment to see how else can you deal with leafy spurge other than spraying.
My name is Mary Lou Montemayor, and I have been with SEAWA as the Executive Director since April of 2016. Our projects so far are dealing with issues of invasive species in riparian areas, insufficient woody vegetation, as well as disturbance from livestock, pets, and people.
So I talked to my neighbors. Everybody thought it was a waste of time and money and foolish. But I'm not that way. I think that the only way we can progress is if we take these programs and progress. That's the whole thing. And we definitely got to progress. We don't want to go back to where we come from. We want to go ahead, is how I see it.
Riparian areas offer educational and recreational opportunities. They're also beneficial to public health. We're spending less on flood control, and we're spending less money on water decontamination and water quality measures within cities because riparian areas are doing the work for us in a lot of cases, just because they act as groundwater discharge areas. So yeah, if there's too much water or not enough water, they can help regulate that too. Also really effective at minimizing contamination. So there's various chemical processes that take place within wetlands and riparian areas that help.
You know, in this case here, for instance, this reservoir is used quite heavily for recreation. And there have been a number of years in this particular reservoir, we've had blue-green algae. And blue-green algae is very dangerous, as you know. It produces cyan toxins. So, you know, having too many nutrients enter the water helps the blue-green algae grow. So it's not always just one thing, you know, and once you start interfering with nature and so forth, you have a lot of accumulated effects. Intercepting those kind of nutrients and that before they get into the lakes is greatly beneficial for many people, including the recreationists and, of course, the environment. Blue-green algae has been known to, of course, kill off bird populations too.
I was always trying to help the wildlife. We did as much as we could. If you benefit the wildlife, you certainly benefit everything else you do for your cattle. The water is a very big thing. It's not doing it for me, it's doing it for the benefit of all people. That's the part that you want to try and get across to people. It's another 10 years, I will maybe be around 5 years. It's not really for me, but somebody's got to start it. So we got together with SEAWA, and that worked out good. I'm glad they're here. I really am glad they're here. There's no question about that. 90% of the cost, they're taking care of it. And it's money well spent, in my mind. I could have done other things, but I really love the outside environment as it is, and I hate to see things destroyed and not put back together again. My dad, in my dad's era, every rancher, they were the first conservationists. They had to be. They had to manage the waterways, they had to manage the trees. And that's all part of growing and getting more production out of your land and still have a safe environment for all the wildlife.
We humans cannot divorce ourselves from the environment. You cannot grow a crop without being part of the environment. And being part of the environment also means being a steward.
So what we've done at this site is a combination of fencing and planting. So this fencing here was all put in to restrict cattle access, which helps prevent soil compaction, helps prevent trampling to vegetation, and helps reduce nutrient input into the water. So with the fencing, a combination of planting native shrubs, which can then revegetate, also further reduce nutrient input into the water, provide habitat for wildlife, prevent erosion, and all that good stuff.
They identified the areas where the heavy infestations were of this leafy spurge, and that takes a lot of time. Anyhow, they got all of that information, and then they started doing something about it. They've had groups of people come out here and pick those weeds out of there by hand.
We haven't sprayed any chemicals or herbicides or pesticides to deal with pests or weeds or anything, so it's all just hand management. Like if I see a caterpillar on a plant, I'll remove it, try and move it somewhere else.
That's what I like about them, because they're here consistently. They didn't just drive in, do a little bit of thing, and then drive away and forget about it. They're so consistent. So anybody that's got any questions, they can certainly just bring them out here and have a look. Walk along the creek bank and you'll see the results. Now we got grass back there, we got some bushes growing, and the weeds are getting dealt with also.
We have an experiment on how to control Russian olive saplings. So we tried several methods. So this one is extraction. And you can see there's no regrowth. So in every scientific experiment, there has to be what we call replicates. One is not sufficient, it should be at least 3.
The small results that we have seen are actually really positive. So saying that, if we spend another 10, 15, 20 years on this same project, we're gonna have some really big comparisons. But you need the time period to get the comparisons. It's an experiment and it takes time for this to follow through.
Projects such as the Riparian areas restoration, we have to apply for grants. Sometimes small projects can be funded by a donation. Yeah, and then you can help. You can help us planting, you can help us watering, you can donate. Be a member of SEAWA, be active, try to minimize your impact. Don't litter, don't drive over streams.
There are certain economic incentives as well, so whether it's funding that you can get or kickbacks from having restoration projects on your land. But yeah, I think one of the main incentives is just knowing that you're contributing to something that's larger than yourself as well. It's happening on your property, but the impact is so much greater.
It might only be a small project, and really it is. It's not, you know, some monstrous project that's going to be in National Geographic. It's just a little project. But you have enough little projects and you make a difference. I think most times we get caught up in thinking we have to do this big thing, where essentially I think we can do a little thing. And if a lot of people do a lot of little things, it becomes a big thing.
This is where you get to have Dave's final thoughts. What have you learned or taken away from this project and working with SEAWA?
Well, that's a good question. Yeah, I've learned a lot. I've learned that other people care and have the passion that I do. And I appreciate what they're doing. And I would hope that they carry on with it. I know that we're going in the right direction with these things. These projects are really good. And that's about all I can think of right at the moment. Well, it means a lot. It means a lot for, not only for me. I'm not doing this for me totally. I'm doing it, of course I enjoy it and I appreciate it, but what I really appreciate is seeing somebody else get involved and do something about it, like fixing the riparian area, making it more productive and viable for wildlife. And it's urban people that are coming out here and get to enjoy and do what, like I said previous, to get to do something. They'll never forget this experience. They might think it was a bad experience because it was 100 above out and they had to pick weeds. But either way, they know they were here for a worthwhile project. And not everything in a project is easy to do. So you have difficulties or setbacks, as you'd mentioned. So we're on our way to a real good, I really truly believe that this is going to be a good program. As long as we can keep the funding coming to support it. And I don't know if the funding would get a little short. I think maybe we could do something about that somehow. Then we're going to get more and more and more. And it'll work. I know it will. It has to. It just has to.
falling moon, electric yellow and maroon.